Welcome to Lesson 1 in Unit 9, How Seeds Travel. In this lesson, students will work to answer the question, how can we figure out what plants need to grow? In this lesson, students plan an investigation about how plants grow under different environmental conditions. Students figure out what makes a fair test, then plan and conduct an investigation that includes a fair test to determine if cucumbers and radishes need sun and water to grow. Students make connections to the storyline by sharing their initial explanation for how the cucumber plants ended up growing in the radishes. There are several opportunities for ELA and math cross-curricular connections throughout the lesson. You can look for specific standard connections in the Unit 9 Teacher Guide. This lesson will take approximately 4 days to complete. To begin the unit and the Lesson 1 Engage, you'll use the curriculum slides to introduce the anchoring phenomenon by telling the story of the cucumber plant in the radish bed. Be sure to see the noted opportunity to attend to equity should the provided anchoring phenomenon not be compelling for your students. Students will find the anchoring phenomenon more compelling if they can connect to it personally. If you want to change the anchoring phenomenon for your context, keep the following questions in mind. Is it going to be relevant to my students' lives and/or particularly engaging to them? Is it going to motivate students to want to explain what plants need to grow, how animals aid in seed dispersal, and the diversity of life in different habitats? The anchoring phenomenon story details how students at a school planted radishes on one side of the school building and cucumbers on the other. When the students returned to school in August, they noticed a cucumber plant growing in the radish bed. They are charged with solving the mystery of the traveling cucumber plant. You'll ask students what happened in the story and allow them to share any observations they made while listening to the story. As students are sharing their observations and questions, you'll provide them with this sentence stem, "Now I'm wondering about," to model how we can use observations to develop questions. Once students have their questions, you will guide them in creating categories for their questions on the driving question board, using the steps provided in the teacher guide. Once categories are created, you'll guide the class in collapsing categories into bigger categories that have closer alignment to the driving questions provided in the unit. Do not answer questions at this time or correct student thinking. They will explore their questions and explain this anchoring problem throughout the unit. For example, if a student says something incorrect, you can say, "How could we figure that out?" You'll then have students record their initial ideas about the traveling cucumber plant on the "How did the cucumbers end up in the radish garden" student journal page. You'll then allow students to turn and talk, then share a few answers with the whole class. For the Explore portion, you'll provide students with a radish seed, a cucumber seed, and a hand lens, and allow them to make observations of the seeds. You'll then ask what they think these seeds need to become a plant and how they could figure that out. You can post and discuss the seed vocabulary card. You'll tell students that they're planning this investigation to determine what the cucumber and radish seeds need to grow and what we need to make sure that our investigation is a fair test. You can post and discuss the investigation and fair test vocabulary cards. You'll set up the planting investigation. Be sure to see the tutorial slides for detailed procedures. For the Explain portion, you'll invite students to gather in a circle and share their findings from their planting investigations. You'll use the provided questions to guide your discussion around the question, how can we figure out what cucumbers and radishes need to grow? The goal of this class discussion is for students to reflect on the investigation they set up and consider what data we might collect, beginning in Lesson 2. During the discussion, you'll read, "How does a plant grow?" Be sure to see the Read Aloud guide for discussion questions and key ideas. You'll also go over the Prediction vocabulary card. You'll allow students time to record their predictions about plant growth on the Predictions of Plant Growth student journal page. For the Elaborate portion, you'll tell students that they are currently waiting for their seeds to grow to help them investigate if plants need sunlight and water to grow. They are going to collect data to help them figure out which plants are doing well and which ones aren't. They'll use centimeters on a ruler to measure the plants. You can post and discuss the data and centimeter vocabulary cards. You'll then put students in groups to take measurements of each other's pencils in centimeters. Students should record this measurement on the Measurement Practice student journal page. You'll discuss the graph vocabulary card and use student pencil length data to create a class line plot on the board or a piece of chart paper. Students can recreate this line plot using whole class data or just their group's data on the Measurement Practice student journal page. Students will use the data from this line plot to create a bar graph on the Measurement Practice continued student journal page. For the Evaluate portion, you'll ask students what they think plants need to grow and how their experiment will show this. They'll think, pair, share. To support student sense-making across the unit, you'll orient them back to the driving question board. You'll ask students, what did we learn about how we can figure out what plants need to grow? And what additional questions do you have now? By the end of this lesson, students will have planned and conducted an investigation to collect data on what plants need to grow. In Lesson 2, students continue this investigation, making observations, measurements, collecting and recording and analyzing data from their plants. They also learn about the parts of a flowering plant. For the optional Extend, you can do any of the science activities from the back of How Does a Plant Grow? For more information about this unit, visit mysidepartners.com.